Okay, folks, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to get our meeting started now. First thing to do is our roll call. Donna, could you help us out with that?
Jason Olive.
Here.
Barb Mostyn.
Here.
Joel Worth.
Here.
Kurt Roars. Here. Patty Serrano.
Here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Now let's, I'll join in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. All right, that brings us around to our routine business. First, we need to approve the minutes of the May 10th meeting. Could I get a motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve the minutes of the May 10th, 2023 regular board meeting as presented.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. Next item is to approve and ratify payroll and accounts payable vouchers. Could I get a motion, please?
I move to approve and ratify payroll and accounts payable vouchers.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving payroll and approving and ratifying payroll, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Narducci, is there any correspondence?
President Oliver, there's no correspondence at this time.
All right. That brings us to probably our favorite thing of the whole night. We're going to get to talk about the state champions. Singersall.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members, Superintendent Narducci. So as you know, it's summer, and so our students are out and about, but we have the privilege of having some state champions with us tonight. So first, I would like to start with the Hamilton eSports team. So we have one member of that team, Mr. Ty Stinson. If you could go up front, please, young man. And he was actually on, so Hamilton has two esports teams, and they won two championships, one for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and then the other one for League of Legends. And Ty was on League of Legends, which is like a 5-on-5 capture the flag. This was the first esports championship for Hamilton, and we are just booming in esports, and I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Colleen Flannery real quick to say a couple of sentences about esports.
Good evening. We are so excited about Hamilton and two state championships their first year. We're excited to invest in our esports and are looking at growing our high schools and our junior highs next year. So good job.
Thank you, Colleen. And the esports team is coached by Mr. Michael Wee. He is an English language arts teacher at Hamilton, and he could not be here with us this evening, but congratulations, Ty. Congratulations to your fellow gamers. That's an awesome accomplishment, and best of luck, young man. And then next we have the boys volleyball state title winners from Perry High School. The Pumas came from behind to win a 5-game thriller over #1 seed Highland on May 13th at Skyline High. It was Perry's second boys volleyball championship in 3 years and avenged a loss to Highland in last year's final. So we ask that Coach Ryan Tolman to introduce his team and say a few words.
Thank you for having us tonight. We're excited to be here. I've got 4 boys with us today. Wanted to introduce each one of them. These are our 4 starters for us. We'll go from my left to right. So we'll start with Caden Ledbetter. He's a sophomore this year, going to be a junior. Played middle blocker for us. He was made the all-premier region team and the all-CUSD team. And then next we have Jake Andreasen. He's a graduated young man, senior, so he's moving on. He was an outside hitter for us. Also made the All-Premier Region team and the All-CUSD team as an outside hitter. And then we have another graduated young man, Caleb Hawkins. He was our backup setter, our defensive specialist, and serve specialist. He made the All-CUSD honorable mention team and All-Premier Region team. And then lastly, we have Gunnar Cook with us. He was our libero. He's also graduated. He made the All-State team. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in the All-Premier Region, and he made the All-CUSD team as well. Incredible young men. We graduated 8 seniors. All of them were great. They contributed to our success. I think the best part of our season was we went to the Chandler Spring Media Day, and we got to introduce some of our players there, and then I got to say some words, and I asked one question at the media day. I asked everybody who was coming in second place, and we made good on that promise, so we were real excited that we were able to make Coach look smart that day and overcome the odds. It was a great night for us against Highland that night. We were certainly the underdogs, and they overcame some odds and came back and won. It was awesome. So thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. Congratulations, boys.
Thank you. And before you guys go, Superintendent Narducci, before you go, I'm going to ask Ty to go up there, and I'm going to grab a quick photo, please.
Get Coach in there.
Get the coach.
Okay, that's wonderful, guys. Thank you very much. And thanks for all your hard work you do. Next, that brings us around to our superintendent current events.
Thank you, President, all members of the board. School may be out, but we're busy working on renovation projects while students and teachers are off for the summer. Jacobson, CTA Humphrey, Shumway Leadership Academy, Fry, CTA Liberty, and Arizona College Prep Middle School, as well as CTA Goodman, are having new carpeting installed. We anticipate these being completed before school resumes. Updates are happening to the kitchen and food service line at Hamilton High School, and we're really excited that we're getting that project under wraps. We're also very excited to complete the Hope Institute in August. This facility, adjacent to Perry High School, will play an important role in our efforts to assist our youth mental health district-wide initiatives. And so that will open up for us. Our Human Resources Department is especially busy screening and hiring quality staff. We anticipate hiring 325 teachers and 450 support staff to prepare for the upcoming year. For those in the audience here, we employ over 5,200 staff members, as we're the second largest district in the state. This is a very productive time for Dr. Nance and her team. Her teachers new teachers to Chandler report on July 5th, so our summer is not very long. The timeline is short with our calendar, so our school sites are really busy getting ready to greet our new teachers. Our teacher and our recruiting class are amazing people. The quality that we've attracted is fantastic year after year, so we're excited to welcome these 325 teachers and 450 support staff. One of the ways Human Resources and the Transportation Department are promoting work opportunities is through the inaugural Come Drive a Bus event this Saturday. Participants will watch a video and then step outside to explore our air-conditioned buses. Instructors will guide interactive sessions where participants will learn about different sizes of buses, driver controls, and effective use of using mirrors on the school bus. If there's anybody in the audience here or that's listening and you want to drive a bus and you consider that fun, come and talk to, yes, I think somebody was just volunteered. Come and talk to us, okay? Destination College and summer recovery programs are in full swing. For those who do not know, Destination College takes more than 150 CUSD sixth graders to Chandler Gilbert Community College to experience college life. The students take the bus to and from their elementary schools to the college, where they participate in classes like robotics, coding, arts, and math. I got a little short video to show you of this. We've had this partnership with for a long time with CGCC.
My name is Danielle Harris. I am the Summer Learning Coordinator for Destination College this year, and welcome to our campus. Here we are working towards giving fifth graders that are going into sixth grade the experience of college for 2 weeks. This year, students are taking college-themed courses called Shark Tank, CSI Chandler, which is crime scene investigation, the great outdoors, and lights, camera, action. We've been doing this program since 2004, and we've got this partnership with Chandler Gilbert, and it's been amazing.
And Ms. Ingersoll, I think their graduation is tomorrow night, as a matter of fact, at Chandler Gilbert Community College. So we'll be there representing and cheering our kids on. We haven't had a school board meeting in a month due to graduation ceremonies at the end of May, but there was quite a bit of accomplished down the home stretch of the last part of the school year. Chandler Unified students showcased their exceptional talents at both the Arizona State Science and Engineering Fair and the International Science and Engineering Fair. Again, despite representing only 3% of Arizona's student population in the state, CUSD students triumphed by claiming more than 1/3 of the state's award-winning projects. 6 CUSD students qualified for the International Fair. 4 of the 6 took home top honors. That's just unheard of, and we're very proud of our students. I want to congratulate also Principal Shirley Matthew of Rice Elementary. Shirley was awarded the prestigious Exemplary Principal Award for Maricopa County Schools. Our Superintendent Steve Watson on May 16th. Shirley was surprised with this award at an event on Tuesday, May 16th. The Exemplary Principal Award recognizes leaders who understand the connection between thriving school culture and high levels of student achievement and teacher retention. Congratulations to Shirley on this accomplishment, well deserved. We're very proud of her. July 19th is when students arrive for the first day of school. If any parents are watching and looking for information about enrolling their children, details can be found on our website at CUSD80.com. That's CUSD80.com. At our next board meeting, I'll share more details on Operation Back to School, which is July 15th. This event helps families get ahead of providing supplies and clothing for their children. They are also providing haircuts this year, but need licensed stylists. So if you're a licensed stylist out there and you know somebody that can help, please contact Backpack Drive at 4OurCityChandler.org. That's Backpack Drive at 4OurCityChandler.org, or look on our website, and I'm sure we'll have something posted there as well. Finally, I'd like to close with a reminder. Chandler Unified students and staff come from many different walks of life, filling our district with such amazing diversity. I believe that diversity is one of our strengths, and we should continue to use the strength for good. And no matter where we come from, kindness is the same everywhere. For that reason, I encourage us all to maintain an attitude of gratitude as we head into another school year. And we're really excited about not only closing the school year down, but every school year brings excitement. I want you to all think about when you were kids and remember that excitement and maybe that anxiety that came when that first day of school was coming out. We feel that every day. I feel like I'm a kindergartner every year, so for 40 years. So anyway, just remember that as our kids are coming to school, maybe wave at those buses or just say, have a great day at school, and I know it goes a long way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Narducci. That was good. Now we get to the part of the meeting where we have the citizen comments. Today we have 4 speakers, so we'll have 3 minutes each. I get to read the legal part of it. This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, at the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the public body may respond to, individual members of the board may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, may ask staff to review the matter, and may ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the public body shall not discuss or take, this should be the board, shall not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action.
The first speaker this evening is Mr. Kurt Roars on Sunshine Law.
So first, I'd like to say I'm speaking as a private citizen, and my comments here do not reflect the opinions of the governing board as a whole. So you may want to wonder why I'm addressing you here instead of up there. The fact is, it's very difficult to address the community and the board as a whole because we're very restricted on what we can say as board members when we're acting as board members. So what I'd like to do is just review part of the school board member handbook that we had and the powers and the duties of the governing board, just so the public has a good understanding. I'm quoting, "Americans believe in local control of education. Education is a universal, nonpartisan responsibility. Schools should be responsive to the needs of the children and accountable to the citizens of their communities. The primary instrument through which local citizens' interests are expressed and through which lay control, which is the public, is affected is the governing board. The governing board, regardless of the size of the school system, is the most direct link between the public and its schools. Thus, the board has the task of representing the public interest in developing policies for the operation of the school system. So we do expect the district to act in its self-interest. However, that self-interest never supersedes the interest of the public. Thank you.
The next speaker is Zanaya on gifted education. Zaina.
Thank you, CUSD Board, for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Zaina Pruzhanovsky. I have students, children in this district, as well as I'm a certified teacher in Arizona. Summer is here, but learning continues, and I'd like to thank Lisa Dara at Chandler Online for assisting my son with his courses this summer. Also, COA has continued to be an excellent source of educational opportunities for my family and friends. So as you begin a new year, please think about professional development for educators, considering training to dispel biases related to religion, ethnic basis, physical challenges, and gender identity, as well as providing support for the school's staff, emotional well-being in the next school year. For gifted children, I'd just like to mention, I moved from the state of Kansas specifically for this gifted education in Chandler Unified. I'm so happy to know that my daughter, she graduated, and also that she's going to be studying mathematics. But as she was identified, with certain giftedness comes challenges. So gifted children receive some of their gifts, and then they have some challenges. So while she was an early reader at age 3, I didn't know until last year she was hyperlexic, and that's as opposed to dyslexic. So children come with hyperlexia. They usually have a strong early interest in letters and symbols and patterns at an early age, much typical than a typical child. So they have significant difficulty in comprehending and using verbal language, although they have a very strong memory. The language component that's missing in a hyperlexic child is answering the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. Also metaphors and identifying genres. If we had determined she was hyperlexic in the beginning, there had been some interventions in place to guiding her skills to strengthen her comprehension. Just considering that for gifted children, please consider some type of professional development to identify that hyperlexia does exist, and perhaps maybe in a parent or guardian questionnaire when you are identifying the giftedness in children. Thank you.
The next speaker is Tracy, and the subject is budget.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to come in here and speak. I didn't really know how to term what you were asking for, so I'll try to explain it this way. I think there's always a big concern on where is all the money going. I don't personally have kids right now, but I babysit in my neighborhood from 2 years old to 14 years old. And I have a lot of parents that ask me, and they seem to have difficulty understanding where all the money is going. And the other thing I learned just the other night is that you have a contingency reserve fund, but there's not that available to the public. Like, how much money is in there? Is there $100 million in there? Is there $1 million in there? And why is that not available to the public? I think all money, since we're taxpayers, and it's taxpayers' money that are funding the schools, we should have clear accounting on where all that money is going. And that is my request to know, where is this contingency fund? What does it do? And how much is actually in there? Thank you.
The next speaker is Lois Sugar, Diversity and Budget.
Hi, my name is Lois Sugar, and I like to say that I graduated from Chandler School District, but I actually retired from Chandler School District. I helped open up Hamilton High School. I am very familiar. I worked at Chandler Junior, Willis Junior, and I also did some scheduling for Bogle, so I'm very familiar with the district. How things have changed. I remember my first year teaching years and years ago. I was brought to the school board for teaching witchcraft. I was the first Jewish teacher, and someone felt that something that I said was inappropriate, brought before the board by Glenn Hewish, spoken to Glenn Hewish. Nowadays, what I'm here to tell you is my husband and I are both precinct committeemen. We both represent at least 125 members of the Republican Party in this community. We live in the community, and we have lived here for 36 years. We were the third home in Ocotillo. Not only do we represent the parents, we also represent the teachers who live within the community. The community, the parents, the teachers are afraid to say things. Quite a few of them are afraid to say things. One parent called me up, asked me to come with her to one of our schools. Her student, who was suicidal, seeking psychiatric care, had attempted suicide, was given a survey to fill out in the class in 7th grade. And the survey asked, if you were suicidal, do you have means to commit suicide? Is there drinking going on in the class? Are there weapons in the class? Are there people that come in your home? Are there people that come to your home that you're fearful of? And this was something that was handed out, I guess, to get federal funding, okay? This child who was suicidal was given this by a substitute teacher in a music class. And the mother was concerned because if I hadn't mentioned to the mother that these surveys were coming out, she never would have known about that. She asked her daughter after he'd spoken with me, have you received something like this? The daughter said, oh yeah, we got it a week or so ago. And the mother said, what did you say on it? Yeah, I told them I was suicidal. Okay, so I go in, meet with the principal. In fact, the music teacher hands it over to the secretary of the counselor, who again has no authority to see that kind of documentation. The counselor's secretary turns it over to the counselor. The counselor then turns it over to the secretary of a social worker. The social worker's secretary turns it over to the social worker. That mother to this day has never been notified by the school that they knew that her child was suicidal. And this again was part of the funding back a couple of years ago. Did she come? I asked her, did she come and speak to you? No, she's afraid that there would be some retaliation against her daughter. As my husband and I have approached over 185 registered Republicans in our community.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, that brings a conclusion to our call to the public. I have a question, Mr. Narducci. Is there a hyperlexia, some kind of PD on people?
I would have to defer to Dr. Marshall.
President Olive, hyperlexia is sometimes a quality found typically with kids on the autism spectrum or for highly gifted kids to where they are hyperlexic. They can read, but they don't have they can decode, but they don't have the comprehension. So we do work with our teachers on what that means for kids who can decode and read the words, but yet not demonstrate then the follow through on their comprehension skills. So we have that, and we work with, obviously, with our curriculum and instruction on how to differentiate the teacher's instruction on how to help that student comprehend.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us next to our consent agenda. Could I get a motion? Oh, am I doing it wrong?
President, I'll, a member of the board, I'll make the first motion here, I guess. I'm going to present it. I'm recommending the consent agenda items as posted and as published.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. To vote on the consent agenda, could I get all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you. The consent agenda carries. And once again, if you guys don't know what we're voting on, it's all the posted stuff. It's normal business. It's on the website. Action items brings us to board achievement goals.
Good evening, President Olive, members of the board. I'm going to first read the action item, and then I will give you a brief overview on our final board achievement goals for school year 22-23. I, Dr. Jennifer Fletcher, Executive Director of Accountability, Assessment, and Research, presented the 2022-2023 board achievement goals for Journey 2025 for review and discussion during the board retreat. At that time, not all data was finalized and predicted scores were utilized based on previous trend data. Today, all data is final. Request approval of the 2022-2023 Journey 2025 Board Achievement Goals, which results in a one-time payment of $600 to full-time staff and $300 to part-time staff for their performance pay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Could I get a motion so that we could have discussion? Oh,
She has I think, do you want me to go through it?
oh, you have a presentation.
Quickly. Is that
I'm
okay?
sorry.
That's okay.
I jumped the gun there.
That's all good. I just want to go through the final data so that everyone can see how the district fared on our board achievement goals. As a reminder, board goal slide number 1 is the final results. But if you look at elements 4, 3, 2, and 1, those rubric numbers don't mean anything. So slides 2 and 3 are your reference slides, which actually tell you the different metrics for each element. And then slide 3 are your subgroups.
Can you go through it again? I'm lost.
Yep, so I'll go over the final, oops, sorry, wrong way. Final data on this in a minute, but your second and third slides on here, these actually show you, so a 4 for 1A is at least 80% of students respond that they agree or strongly agree to concepts on our climate survey, right? But if you look at this slide, it just says greater than 3. So that doesn't mean anything to you. So I provide this slide to give you what are the actual data points, because we are calculating those data points for every single subgroup and then taking an average of all those data points. Does that make sense? It is a little complicated. All right. So 1A, board goal 1 is our equity and student perception, achievement, and access. 1A, you see we look at our climate survey that is a conglomerate of 8 different components of the student climate survey. We are a 4. 1B is our school discipline. We look to see that we are per capita will be below 0.1 events per student. Again, we are a 4. Our enrollment rates in advanced programs be at least 25.5%. We were a 4. Our statewide assessment data, so AASA, MSAA, and ACT proficiency in ELA and math, we look to be at least 60% or see a year-over-year increase on each subgroup, right, so that we're making gains. We were a 4 this year. 1E, at least 40% of our students are college ready on 3 of the 4 ACT exams. So that's reading, math, science, and English. We were a 3. And then our graduation rates, we look for at least a 93% graduation rate for each subgroup, or a gain in graduation rate from prior year to current year. So we were a 3. Again, I know it's a complicated system. All right, it gets easier, I promise. Board goal 2, grade level proficiency. Again, statewide assessment data, AASA, MSAA, and ACT, looking to see our students are proficient in ELA and math. We are a 4 this year, which was an increase from a 3 of last year. We also look at grades K through 6 showing growth from beginning of the year to the end of the year on our district-wide assessments. So that's School City and Dibbles 8. We were a 3. Board Goal 3, we look at students in 3rd grade reading at grade level. So the percent of 3rd grade students performing at grade level, we'd like to be at least 62%. This was a 4 this year, so also an increase from a 3 in prior year. And then we look again at growth on our 3rd grade students from beginning of the year to the end of year on our district school city benchmark assessment, and we were a 4. Board Goal 4 is indicators for college and career readiness. This is a long board goal, so bear with me. We have our scholarship dollars. We were a 4 at over $182 million in scholarships earned by our students. Service learning hours. This is the first year we have collected service learning data since before COVID. So you can see we were a red. That means we really need to reevaluate and look at our students able to get back into the community and see what's happening with our service learning dollars, or learning hours. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. National Merit Scholars, Flynn Scholars. We were a 4. We had 67 this past year, which is astonishing. Our advanced placement tests, if you recall, last year we were a 1. So we increased to a 3 this year. We had 7,361. And of those students who are taking our advanced placement tests, at least 68% of them are scoring a 3, 4, or a 5, which gives us a 4 on their scores. This slide shows all of the ACT subtests. If you recall, at the board retreat, we discussed we had to make a change to using the average ACT score because ACT no longer publishes the college and career ready data that we used to use. So looking at the average ACT score, seeing if we are higher than all other states who are testing at least 85% of their students, we were a 4 in every subject. Still on board goal 4, International Baccalaureate data, we were a 3 this year. We had 128 exams at a 4.42. So we need to see what's happening with our IP exam data. Dual credit hours, we were over 23,000, which put us at a 4. And then career and technical education placement and concentrators, we were greater than 80%, also a 4. Board Goal 5 focuses on student dropout rates. If you recall, last year we changed the dropout rate to compare to the state average because of the volatility of the nature due to COVID of what was happening with dropout rates. So this year we still are a 4 at a 2.49% dropout rate compared to ADE, which is a 5.5%. So state is a much larger dropout rate. Chronic absences. This is again the first year we've included chronic absences. We are at a 20% chronic absence rate, which puts us at a 1. As you know, this trend occurred since COVID, so we need to evaluate the data. It is a statewide and national trend that they are seeing, so much so that they are forming task forces at the state level to try to address it. Board Goal 6, graduation rate. We are a 3 this year. We were at a 90% graduation rate, and the state came up ever so slightly to put us at a 3.89 difference between us and them, so we dropped to a 3 this year. The percentage of 9th grade students who attain 5.5 credits during their first year in high school, we are a 1. So 87.3%. Again, we're really close there, but something that we need to dive into more and see what's happening. Board Goal 7 is our market share, so that our student charter school mobility rate will not exceed 2.5%. We were a 4. Employer of choice, as measured by our certified employee retention, is greater than 90%, so we are a 4. Board Goal 9, district of choice, as rated by a letter grade assigned by parents on our West Group survey. At least 90% of our responders rated us an A or a B, which put us at a 4. board goal 10, percentage of dollars spent in the classroom. We continue to be in the top 10% of all districts in the state, which also puts us at a 4. Board goal 11, outside contributions. We like to meet or exceed 2.5% of our maintenance and operations budget, and we did that again this year, so we were a 4. And finally, board goal 12, communication with community. 85% of our respondents on our West Group survey rate us as an A or B with respect to communication, resulted in a 4. So you take all that, you do some magical math, add up your points. You look at, we earned 43.25 total points out of 48, which puts us at a 90.1%. Greater than 90% earns staff their full performance pay award.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Orrs.
Yeah, I had 2 questions for you. You talked about the CTE programs and student concentration. Could you explain that a little bit more for the public out here?
Well, let me just go back to it. It's easier for reference for folks. So we look at students who are, you can see in the fine print, I'm going to read it just momentarily, right, who are in the program for 2 or more years that continue to post-high school education, a military career, or were employed in the field in which they concentrated while in CTE in high school. So our CTE department calls every single CTE placement concentrator student 1 and 2 years after they graduate to follow up on them and to see what they are doing. And we expect and hope that we have at least an 80% rate who are doing what they concentrated in high school.
So see if I can give you an example. So if we had a kid that did auto mechanics, so you check with them 1, 2 years down the road and you see if they're working as an auto mechanic. Okay, very good. Second question was about mobility rates in charter schools. Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Yep, so when students unenroll from us, the registrars request, they ask the parent, where may you be going? And they fill that in Infinite Campus for us so that we can know where and how we're losing or why we're losing our students. So if they're moving out of the state, they write that into Infinite Campus. If they're going to a charter school, they write that into Infinite Campus, and that's the data we utilize to determine how many we've lost to charter schools.
Okay, what sort of response rate do you get?
I'll be honest, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to go look.
Okay, well, a lot of people won't respond because, particularly if they're mad. What is the question I want to ask? Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh,
Sarah.
I just wanted to make a comment as a follow-up to our board retreat, as you mentioned. We had some healthy discussion around these goals. And just so everybody's aware, based on our discussion, my understanding is that we will be working towards some revisions for our metrics this fall. And that would include some further detail with subcategories that we were asking for. And that will help us identify any outliers. For instance, the chronic absences. They might be happening at specific schools and we can target that way. So we're looking forward to some good revisions this fall.
And if you don't mind, I would like to add to that because we are going to do a fall deep dive on data for the board in a study session that is a joint presentation of teaching and learning to also address how we're going to help solve some of those gaps.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Me for just one more question. The mobility rates from our district out to charter schools or wherever they go.
Yes.
You have a good measurement of that, we hope, because of the response rate. Do we have a measurement of where they come from? Because they move in as well.
Only if they tell us.
Only, well, a little bit easier since, they're kind of captive at that point. But do we measure that?
No, not at this time. We collect it, but we don't measure it.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if those things balance out. Charter school out, charter school in. Maybe we got a positive balance, which would be a good thing. Okay? So maybe we can address that.
Yeah, that's something we can look at, and I know in the past there's been a pretty close of what we've seen, because when we're looking at open enrollments, we see where they're coming from as well.
We
look
actually
at that.
also will be presenting to the board. Rick Bramer has just finished his draft, and then we're having our staff review the draft from Applied Economics. He actually records there's 18 charter schools in our district and 4 on the boundaries. There's also a handful of private schools in our district and few on the boundaries. He has the exact number of kids that go to the charter schools based on their ADM reports and our ADM reports, and he can go over that with all of us. So he'll go over all of the changes that took place. The number that's at the charter schools, you can see all the years. It's a great report. Once it's finalized, it'll be presented to you just like we do every time that it's updated, and we'll go over that with the governing board. We'll have a presentation on that. One thing you have to be really careful of is when we tried to do this during COVID, we tried to take a SACE number and then go see where they went, because parents don't have to give you where they're going. We ask that for them, but they don't have to give it to you. And so a lot of times we didn't know, especially when COVID happened and there was 50,000 students across the state that were gone. And we tried to go in and put SACE numbers in. We tried to contact ADE, but you're not actually allowed to go in and determine where they're at. You can't do that. You can only do it for your own students. And so that's it. There's some data issues and integrity there. So some things that we'd like to know, we don't have access to or the ability. I just wanted to let you know that, because I would love to know that too. Can we pull the data? Dr. Fletcher had some great connections there. Unfortunately, we could not pull that. So we can only, the data that we have is voluntary on the information of where they go in the future. Our applied economics expert is able to go into the ADM reports to see how many students within our boundaries are and their addresses. You can pull that information, and so we'll present that, but that's the data that we do have and that we have access to. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Excuse me, they can't tell us which ones went which way either. That's just a general number, right?
No, he knows the number of ADM that are addressed there, and you can pull that information because it's in their AFRs and in their budgets and in their SACE reports. But ultimately, we cannot go in and pull a child that's at another school district's information. We're not allowed to do that.
Because I think you understood where I was going. If we had that side by side, in, out, but also response rate, because if it's a 4% response rate, it's not going to do it. It's an 80% response rate. It means something, and they might give us a better picture.
And I think you guys will all benefit from the applied economics report that actually shows what's happening with the charter schools in our area, the actual charter schools there are in our boundaries and on the boundaries, and then the private schools, and then our capture rate of in-district students, our capture of out-of-district students, how many students we're losing. We cover that with you. So hopefully that can generate some good questions and help understand our ADM projections for now and for the future as we're growing out, as birth rates are declining, and other issues that are across our 80 square miles.
Lana, when will you do this?
We'll probably do it, I would assume, maybe in July or August. We only have one meeting in July, so probably August. We still need to make sure that all the numbers are accurate, and then we'll finalize it probably in July. So I would assume August, Mr. Manucci?
Okay. All right, thank you. I think Ms. Marsden had a question.
Yes. First off, I want to thank Dr. Fletcher for putting together all this data and going through, and I know your team and you put a lot of work into this. I guess the other question on this is oftentimes don't students have to give transcripts to schools when they transfer? Or is that not in elementary school that they have to give some type of school records? And can that be utilized for helping? Sorry. I was wondering, when students leave our district, their school records have to go somewhere. And when we send those out, we know where they're going, and can't that be added into Infinite Campus as to where they are going?
Yeah, we could absolutely look into that. That's a great idea.
And yes, I do want to say from our team that does that on that side, I think Dr. Gilbert can attribute to that. That information is put in when it is recorded. Some of the parents do not request. They might go out of state. They might go out of country. Sometimes that's not there, and some parents don't. They enroll them in a school, and they don't give them their transcripts, or there's situations that are out of our control. But we do put in the information that we do get, either if it's from a registrar's getting the information or if it's from the parent. That's the data that she does have.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Fletcher? Thank you very much. Okay, in that case, I think we're ready to have a motion. Could I get a motion on the agenda item?
Mr. President, I recommend approval. I make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 Journey 2025 Board Achievement Goals.
All right, thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion further? If not, we can vote on it. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. That brings us to our next item, resolution to sign vouchers between board meetings. Lana, could you fill us in on the need for that?
Absolutely, Mr. President, members of the board. And as you saw earlier in the board meeting, I think, Barb, you made the motion, and Mr. Roars, you seconded it when you did the approval of the ratified vouchers and accounts payable vouchers. So the two of you, you made the motion and then you seconded it. That's what you're ultimately requesting, what we're requesting from you. And this is my 23rd year as a CFO of a school district. And so every June, as a CFO, I ask a board to ultimately allow us to ratify our accounts payable vouchers and our payroll vouchers, so that in between board meetings, we ultimately stamp those so we can make payroll and we can pay our bills, and then ultimately they're presented to you and you approve those. And so we are, in a sense, stamping your name and then bringing them back to you. So it's allowing you to ratify that. So why does that take place? Well, as you all know, we have 5,000 employees, and we have we do, I think, around, I don't want to say 15,000 purchase orders per year. And so we pay a lot of bills, right? With the $600 million budget, that's what we do. And if we met every day as a board or every week, we could have you sign off on the vouchers that have to be paid. But we pay bills every week, and we pay payroll every 2 weeks. And sometimes if there's a miss, for example, on an employee who didn't get paid, we have to run payroll the next day and pay that employee according to rules, payroll laws that are put in place. So ultimately, it gives us the authority to pay payroll and to pay our bills, and then ultimately you come back and ratify that. Now you're going to say, well, how are the checks and balance systems put in place? Well, that's what we do. We have great business processes in place. For example, in purchasing, it will start at a school site. They put a requisition in. The school secretary does. The building principal approves that. It comes to our office. It goes to one of our staff to review coding, procurement rules, all of those things. Then my staff or I approve that purchase order. Then the item physically comes to the warehouse. It gets checked in, and let's say it's a piece of furniture. It gets taken to that site. That site confirms that that item is there, signs off on it. That bill comes back to us. We pay the bill, and we pay the company once we receive the item, and then ultimately the board's confirming that we paid those bills and the voucher is done. But if you were to have to sign off on every single item we bought or every single person, you would need to come in on a daily basis for us to do that, because sometimes we have to pay bills. We do it once a week, but there's times where we have to cut checks throughout the week. And then again, we pay our payroll every 2 weeks. And if you only meet once as a board per month, you wouldn't be able to pay your staff in a timely fashion. So this has been in place for years. I've been doing this for 23 years. I don't know why the legislature originally set it up to where the governing board has to sign the vouchers, but I think that was set up a long time ago, and the resolution has allowed us to function in the business world since then. So it's been in place for years. There was a question of why do we start it now? We've actually had it in place for decades. It comes to you every June. It came to this board last June, and that's what's giving you the authority, like you did tonight, where Mrs. Modson and Mr. Aurora, you actually approved it tonight, was the payroll vouchers and the accounts payable vouchers from the previous couple of weeks. Hope that explains it.
Okay, just so I understand, this is a process we've used for quite some time, and we're just renewing it.
So say that one more time.
We're renewing it. It's an annually renewable agreement.
Yes, it's a resolution every year allowing us, so the school district is allowed to stamp vouchers with board member signatures between board member meetings, as long as the voucher is ratified by the board at its next regular scheduled meeting. The attached resolution covers July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
All right, could I go ahead and get a motion on the table so we can have further discussion between ourselves if necessary, or to vote on it?
I would recommend they approve the resolution for voucher ratification from July 1st, 23 through June 30th, 24.
All right, thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Do you guys have any further discussion, or?
No, I think I understand it better. I didn't realize that this was an annually renewable agreement that this is the process that we've been using. Okay, thank you.
All right, good deal. So if nobody has anything else, let's take a vote on this. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you. I believe that carries. Next thing is our CUSD and Lighthouse Well Health Clinic MOU. Dr. Marshall, would you like to give us an explanation of what we're doing there?
I sure would. President of all members of the board. The memorandum of understanding between Chandler Unified School District and Lighthouse Well Health Clinic, doing business as Well Health Clinic, is to help ensure prevention and intervention supports for students and their families experiencing mental, social, emotional, and behavioral health problems, preventing them from achieving academic success, is presented for approval. CUSD will provide referrals of students and families to this partner. Referrals of students shall be made after consultation and with the student's parents and or guardians. Recommended approval, and the MOU is attached.
All right, thank you. Could I get a motion so we could do discussion?
I move to approve of the MOU between CUSD and Lighthouse Well Health Clinic.
All right, thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion or questions about this? Yes, sir.
Okay. So my concern here, and I think you partially addressed it, but I want to make sure I understand it clearly, is that if a child engages with the health clinic, the parents are informed.
Yes, they won't talk to them without, we have to refer them with the parents' permission.
So there is a consent.
Yes, absolutely.
Written consent?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you then.
All right, thank you. If there's no other discussion, let's see about doing a vote on this. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 Thank you. That carries. Next, also a similar thing for the Hope Institute. Dr. Marshall, could you describe that one for us?
As President of all members of the board, the memorandum of understanding between Chandler Unified School District and the Hope Institute is to help ensure prevention and intervention supports for students and their families experiencing mental, social, emotional, and behavioral health problems, preventing them from achieving academic success, is presented for approval. CUSD will provide referrals of students and families to this partner. Referrals of students shall be made after consultation with the student's parent or guardian. Recommended for approval, and the MOU is attached.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion so we could have discussion?
I move to approve of the MOU between CUSD and the Hope Institute.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, wonderful. Does anybody have any further questions or comments, discussion?
Actually, this is very similar to the one previous, and there is, I guess, an extended question to that. So these are treatment centers, essentially.
These are basically clinics and or different agencies that can provide mental health and behavioral health supports for students who are struggling that are beyond the scope of our school counselors and our school social workers.
So they do treat the kids.
Treat, if you want to, yeah, you could call it that, yes.
So, we talked about parental consent to engage with them. And then if they recommend treatments or start treatments, are the parents notified of that, or are the parents involved there?
Yes, it's in consultation with the parents. Nothing is done outside of working with the families.
Just to put it into context, there are other states that will do this without parental consent.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly like gender changes and stuff like that. It's a very controversial issue. I just want to make sure we're not.
No, absolutely not. And that's part of the MOU is if you read through the Hope Institute and then the one prior, it basically lines out that you have to have that parental consent and involvement in a release of information to be able to even talk to this provider. And the parents are going to be involved in the discussion with the referral process.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I want to elaborate, just making sure that we understand, we are not either of these healthcare centers. We're not the Lighthouse Well Health Clinic, and we're not the Hope Institute. We are just simply providing the referral. Once the family enrolls at one of these centers, then these type of questions would actually take place with the centers, because we are not them.
Yes, and thank you, Board Member Serrano, because one of the things, too, to remember is these MOUs are required under state law in order for our families and community members and CUSD students to access the funding under Jake's Law for those that are underinsured or uninsured. And so it just gives another means of assistance to our families who may be needing this support for their students so that they can be present and active in their education.
All All right, thank you. Doug,
Yeah, President, just one more thing, just for clarification for audience and board. As part of our mental health initiative that we've been working with and struggling with for the last 4 years since the pandemic, with the high ideation of suicide ideation in our community, as well as a nationwide epidemic. This is and we've had board study sessions on this before, but our Hope Institute definitely is being placed in an underrepresented area of our district, and families sometimes have to wait 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks to get any kind of contact back about treatment. And so this is giving them the opportunity to get within 48 hours an opportunity to be seen, treated. What we love about the Hope Institute connection with us, and this is one of the very unique ones in our nation, and I think I'm very proud of our district for moving forward this way in the board, is it allows our students to be seen, but they don't stop seeing the student after. They actually follow the student through and transition them through for multiple weeks through the transition, because we know our kids need more support than just being seen once or twice. And they have a very high success rate of pre-hospitalization. So like 60-some-odd% of their students do not need to see hospitalization. As we know, that's not been the answer in many cases. Where we have suicide ideation. So two things that are allowing us is this is better access, more access, and accessibility. And we came to the board about 1.5 years ago, specifically 1 year ago, and said that we would make a difference in the space, and we weren't just going to hold meetings on it, but that we were going to make a difference. And we had help from our community and from our community partners, and our practitioners, our clinicians came out and actually helped form with our committees what was needed. And so I'm happy to say, when you say that our public has responded, they responded through Chandler Unified, and we're proud to be able to offer these two opportunities to be able to address the mental health issues in our community.
all right, thank you. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to clarify, and this is from Member Serrano's comments. I understand that they're private entities, but once they leave our campus, and since we referred them over to, I'm not so sure we're absolved of any liability there. Maybe Dr. Gilbert can speak.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think what's really important, as Ms. Serrano said, is they are clinicians, so they are going to support the student and the family. It starts with they can't get to this organization without it being referred from us, which then requires parent approval, parent written response that they're going to do this. Once the parent and the student engage the organization, then it becomes the parent and the student and no longer us, because even the organization is not going to give us any information because of the protection of records and everything else, and HIPAA and everything else because of. So once we work with the families and get the family approval, it's the parent and the student going to work with the organization, not just the student. And it now becomes the parent and the student with the parent consent as to what they would do with the clinicians at the organization.
Okay, because my concern was that if something goes south, it's not going to come back on us.
No.
In our deep pockets.
No, because it's an independent organization, and they have to follow the MOU just like we do. And in that MOU, there are things that they still have. Let's just say they weren't working with us. They're still bound by the rules that they have when they're working with patients and clinicians, being a clinician, same thing. They're still bound by all the rules that they have. But it starts with us actually having a referral to them with parent permission.
Okay, so we're not going to get dragged into something if they have an issue.
No.
Okay.
All right, if everybody's curiosity is satisfied, Ms. Mazen.
Yes, I recently, last week actually, went to an event that was about mental health. And at that event, there were a lot of clinicians there. And one of the questions that I asked them was, do you have openings for students? And these are private practice clinicians all in the area. Do you have openings for students to see new patients for mental health? And every one of them that I talked to did not have any openings. And so I see this as something really very good for our district and our students, because these organizations do have the connections as to where there are openings, and they can refer them to clinicians who can help students immediately. So I'm very, very glad to see that we are getting involved with both of these organizations to help our students.
All right, wonderful. So with that, I think we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor of the agenda item as presented and seconded, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you. That one carries. Next, we have an approval of a hearing officer's recommendation for expulsion. Let's remember not to use the student's identification or name or anything in this discussion. Frank, would you like to present this?
Yes, President Olive, members of the board, we'd like you to consider the hearing officer's recommendation to expel student 2023-0614 as per discussed and as per in your packet.
All right, could I get a motion on this one?
Mr. President, I move to approve the hearing officer's recommendation to expel student 2023-0614.
All right, thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 All right, that carries. Then we get to our information items, student activities, tax credit reports and such. Mrs. Berry?
Mr. President, members of the board, the student activities, auxiliary operation, tax credit reports for the months ending July of 2022 through May of 2023 are provided for your review.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we get to item 8.02, the Cisco networking and curriculum. Dr. Edgar.
Mr. President, members of the board, the Cisco Networking Academy will provide curriculum resources for the Career and Technical Education Network Security Program. As a member of the Cisco Networking Academy, CUSD has access to the Introduction to Linux 1 and 2 courses provided by Network Development Ground, NDG. NDG Introduction to Linux 1 and 2 courses will be used specifically for the CYB 300 Linux OS and Advanced Linux course. The cost is $29.95 per student per semester, an estimated total of $1,796 plus taxes for the school year 23-24 for 30 students. Total cost will depend on final enrollment of the CYB 300 course. Per ARS 15-721 and CUSD policy IJJ, the curriculum will be on display in the main lobby of CUSD's Instructional Resource Center for 60 days beginning tomorrow, June 15th, for public viewing and input. A final recommendation is anticipated at the regularly scheduled board meeting on August 23rd, 2023.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about this item? All right, that brings us to our next thing is also Dr. Egger.
Me again.
Yes.
President, all the members of the board, there's demand for a comprehensive instructional resource for the new high school science course, Marine Biology. An RFI was released to identify a resource that closely aligns with the ADE standards for science addressed in this course. In addition, the RFI calls for the resources that will complement the CUSD's one-to-one initiative. The committee is recommending the following resource move forward in the adoption process: Castro P. and Hubler M. 2019 Marine Science, 2nd edition by McGraw-Hill. The cost is $12,375.72, including estimated tax, shipping, and processing. This includes 40 student edition textbooks, a 6-year subscription to the online student edition for 80 students, and a 6-year subscription to the online teacher's edition. Online subscriptions include access to the ebook, smartbook, adaptive ebook, teacher manual, PowerPoint presentations, assignable resources, gradebook, and pacing guide. Per ARS 15-721 and CUSD policy IJJ, the materials will be displayed in the main lobby of CUSD's Instructional Resource Center for 60 days beginning June 15th, 2023, allowing public viewing and input. Digital access to the materials on a 60-day review will be available for public viewing via the following website: www.cusd80.com/page/113622. A final recommendation is anticipated at the regularly scheduled board meeting on August 23rd, 2023.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about this item?
I do.
Ms. Mosby.
When we talk about 40 student edition textbooks, but then 6-year subscription for the online student edition for 80 students, can you explain that discrepancy there?
Yes, we actually anticipate to start off with 40, and we don't know exactly till we have all the enrollment. So with our elective courses, what happens is we allow for certain sites to offer, and then it will continue to expand. So this dollar amount should actually go up as the elective, or it's not elective, the science continues to expand in the following years.
And once a student signs up for, when you say a 6-year subscription to it, each one of it is actually a 1-year subscription for 6 years. Is that correct?
Correct. We do have to, we work very closely with the business department in purchasing that we only pay year by year. We don't pay for multiple years unless there's a significant reason as to why a dollar amount savings, so we usually pay year by year.
Okay. Well, and I think my comment was that if you have a student who's taking it as a sophomore and or senior or whatever, they're gone the next year. So does it reset the number of, or the students? It doesn't have a specific identifier for a student for 6 years. It's a single year textbook subscription that can change and somebody else can use it afterwards.
You are correct.
Thank you.
I did have one question about this. A while back, and it's been quite a while since we talked about it, don't we have a rule or guideline that we can only keep something for 4 years, that we only...
So there's not necessarily any rule, but what we do is we rely on the Arizona Department of Education. When they have new standards, we look at the standards in our curriculum guide and assess whether or not that textbook aligns to the newly revised standards. So,
Okay. For some reason, I had that stuck in my head that we only kept things for 4 years or something. I don't know
as
why.
needed basis based upon standards changes.
Okay. If there's no more questions, let's go to the next thing. That's our human resources policy revisions being requested. Oh, there we go.
Mr. President, members of the board, good evening. I will read for you our proposed policy revision. Chandler Unified School District is recommending changes to the following policies and regulations. Policy GCCA and Regulation GCCA-R, Professional and Support Staff Sick Leave. Policy GCCB, Professional and Support Staff General, Emergency, and Religious Leave, referred to as General Leave. Sick leave, general, emergency, religious leave will be changed to paid time off to simplify the usage of leave, effective July 1st, 2023. Policy GCCB is being incorporated into Policy GCCA, thus eliminating Policy GCCB. These changes are presented as information, and approval will be requested at the June 28th, 2023 board meeting. Regulations do not require board approval.
All right, thank you very much. I think we all got a few emails about this one. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Not a question, but I don't know if we have any educators in the room tonight, but I do want to share that we did get some positive communication with feedback on what was earlier released. And it's important to note when we get feedback, we act on it. And that was a result of what we will be approving at the next board meeting. So thank you to everybody that gave some good feedback, and we made sure we got it done.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have curriculum policy items from Dr. Egger.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Arizona School Board Association, ASBA, has recommended changes to the following policies. Policy IGA, curriculum development, policy IGD, curriculum adoption, and policy IJJ, textbook supplemental materials selection and adoption. Boards that utilize textbook review and selection committees are subject to open meeting law, ARS 15-721F2 and 15-722B2. There have been multiple open meeting law complaints in 2021, 2022, and 2023 about curriculum adoption committees that were not posted and did not follow open meeting laws. ASBA Policy Services recognizes that there are some groups of district professionals meeting to discuss curriculum that would not be a board-authorized committee and therefore would not be subject to an open meeting law. However, policy has always authorized boards to create curriculum committees, and the clear reading of the statute subject these types of committees to open meeting law. Chandler School District recommends adopting the policies as proposed by ASBA. These changes are presented as information, and approval will be requested at the June 28th, 2023 board meeting.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about the curriculum policy? Yes, Ms. Marsden.
So these are specifically board-approved committees, which would have to be voted on in a board meeting. Is that correct? To approve that, is that what we're indicating? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Correct. There's two parts of this. One is there's there's a delegation given to the superintendent to create committees. Those committees will be done as always, and I know we've had some board members who said if we have a district committee, if we can know who's on those committees and when they're meeting, which we definitely will comply with and get that information to you as a district committee. But this is when they say there's multiple violations, this is as they're reporting out across the state. It's not about Chandler, it's about the state. So that's ensuring that when you, as the board, assign a committee, that they must follow the open meeting laws, and so that means that they have to be posted, they have to be open to the community, and so that they can participate in that piece as well. So that's what this piece is giving, is that there's that input.
And then we would definitely have to be approving that in an open meeting here in order to create those type committees.
Yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question about it. So just a couple of teachers talking about, I like this book, or I like that book. Is that covered under this kind of thing, or is it more of a formal process?
So when we go out for an RFI, request for information, or an RFP, what we typically do, if there's something like recently the K-6 ELA adoption or pre-K-6 ELA adoption, we involve our parents, but what we need to do, we need to refine a little bit more in curriculum instruction, is the notification of when those times are. Of course, we had several parents get involved, but we need to do a better job in our department of just making sure that those open meeting laws, that there's a posting that's more public, and looking at this, because really if we looked at the old policy, the previous policy, the only change that was made was the addition of the ARS 15-721, 15-722, which is the open meeting law component. So it was already written as it was, and then their ASBA revision, that's what was changed in the policy, was open meeting pieces. So we need to comply with those open meeting notifications.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Roars.
Yeah, Superintendent Narducci touched on this a little bit. I just want to make sure that we clarify it for the public. You know, board-created committees are addressed here very clearly, open meeting law. There are other districts that get around this by having superintendent-created committees that are not approved by the board to do essentially the same function. How does this apply to that situation, and do we do that sort of thing?
So the difference is, of course, every superintendent's going to have the authority to create committees because we do the work of the district. You manage the policy of the district. So we will still have that authority to do that. The committees that we create are usually teacher committees, they're negotiation committees and all those. So we'll still have the authority to do that. If the board, for example, was to say, we really want to improve our fractionality, and we know that in fractions we're not doing well, we would like to put a committee together to figure out what's behind that, and the board agrees that a committee is needed, they would have to follow the law. So as a board appoints a committee, they would have to follow that open meeting law because it's a part of the board governance. Anytime board comes up, open meeting law comes up, and so you have to comply with that if you also have a committee that's generated by the board as well. We have many committees, Mr. Roy, that are not generated by the board. So, for example, I have a faculty committee, which are representatives of the schools. I have a parent advisory, which are parents that come in and give us input, and they're represented by the schools. We have a student committee that comes in as an advisory. We have a mental health advisory, which are students from the schools that come in, and they give us their perspective on what's happening. Those aren't board-assigned committees, but those are committees of the district, and so that's the difference between the two. But if the board assigns a committee, it needs to follow the open meeting laws.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we make that distinction. People don't understand it. I didn't understand it until you explained it to me completely. So there's got to be some sort of delineation about the subject matter of these committees. And I would imagine that anything that has to do with policy, in policy recommendations, it would definitely be a board committee because the board has jurisdiction over policy. Superintendent committees, as advisory, what are the limitations on the types of committees we have for non-board approved committees?
I guess the opposite is more in effect. It's when a board advises the committee. So as 5 board members come together and say, we want a committee, or three of them approve a committee to be able to move forward with something, then that would follow this law. So that the predominance of the board is saying, we want a committee formed to look into this or to research that or to go get this. And then they would be assigned by the board and would come back to the board for their reporting. They wouldn't come back to us, they would come back to the board. So that committee would have to follow the open meeting law because it was assigned by the board.
So these would be board-originated committees, I
Yeah,
think is
correct.
where you're going with this.
Correct, but not all are board originated.
So, Mr. Roars, in IGA, which is the policy that we're discussing, there's a sentence in the proposal that was in our previous piece too, where it says, "The board authorizes a superintendent to develop the curriculum for the school system and to organize committees to review the curriculum." And then the next sentence is the addition of the ASBA policy recommendation revision, which includes the open meeting law component. So it does make that to align with what Mr. Narducci is saying, is that there still is that authorization by the superintendent to develop the curriculum for the school system and organize committees, which would be a superintendent-appointed committee, just to bring it back to the actual policy that was brought up as a revision.
But if the board, let me add on to that, thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Edgar. But if the board was to assign that committee and they were to say, this is a committee we are wanting the district to do, of course, we'll do what we're asked to do, but that group would then be assigned to the open meeting law as well. So it doesn't apply to all committee work. It just applies to the committee work that the board assigns.
Okay, so the board approves all curriculum, so eventually it gets to the board at some point.
You're right.
Okay. So, and here's the issue that we're getting at, and curriculum's a very good example of this. There are parents that want to be on the curriculum committees. They have very strong feelings, one way or another. And we have some issues now in education we didn't have before that make people a little more interested in this. So if somebody wants to get on the superintendent curriculum committee, and you don't want them on there, what's their recourse?
Well, I think Dr. Edgar can explain how the process goes for adoption committees, because we do get parental involvement. So, and we do want parents involved.
So
We
what
love
we do
parents.
have
They're who we
is
work with. So, Dr. Edgar, do you want to talk about the process real quick?
Sure. So when we have a large-scale adoption, we do ask the sites to identify parents that want to be part of that initial piece. So we also have our internal curriculum coaches look at, because when we do an RFI, sometimes we get 20 vendor responses, 30 vendor responses. So to bring that in front of parents is not what we want to do. So we typically have a moment to bring all of the coaches together, different teachers, and then narrow it down to 2 or 3 depending, and then start bringing in our parents. And what we do is we reach out to these school sites to get parent involvement. And you're right, that's not always where everybody gets to have that information, but what we do is make the recommendation to the governing board, and there's a 60-day review. So we have to bring it to with all the information from the teachers, the stakeholders that are involved in that actual committee piece. Then you have the 60-day review, which is why we go through with our adoption pieces, and you're able to look at those at the IRC or online. And then you'll see when these adoption pieces come back to the board for final approval, we'll tell you what the comments are, and we do take those into consideration, because at that time, that's also another time for us to look at and see how our community and stakeholders, what input we receive, and if that truly is, we get to reevaluate before we have that final recommendation for approval by the board.
Okay, so during the development, the parents are actually hand-picked by whoever runs the committee, and that's what I think they're objecting to. So how do we put out an open call, to parents, hey, we're forming this curriculum committee to look at these texts so we can make a recommendation, and they want to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
But they
It's
may
certainly
not
something
have
we can look at, but we also want to take into account too, because we do rely on the principals to provide us some names, but take into account that in order to get the work done, we need to also have a manageable number of individuals looking before we move forward. And there's that 60-day review where anybody can come to the IRC or look at the website and provide input too. So I understand what you're saying. We can certainly look at that and look at the process because, as you know, we are doing a lot of different, we're reviewing a lot of our processes and curriculum and instruction and always getting better. But also understanding that when you have a district of 44,000 students with those parents, we need to make sure that's manageable, but then anybody at that 60-day review can provide a comment, and we look at all those before we take it to the final approval with the board.
Okay, because there are some parents out there, and more have a very, very strong interest in this, and I want to make sure that they're heard throughout the process, not just at the end of the process.
And I appreciate that, and I always encourage any of our parents to reach out to curriculum and instruction, and we will make sure that we get back to you, one of the members of our team.
And Dr. Egger, I think you said something pretty important there, that for 60 days, any adoption process is open to all public. Now, we've advertised this for, I've been in this district for 28 years, and we still have low numbers of people that even show up. Sometimes we have an adoption goes through and nobody even comes. And so we do publish it. We do have people that sit down and work through it, because most of our parents aren't going to know what they're looking for or what they're looking at. And so we do assist. So we would really encourage our people to come out and come to those 60 days. You have to be invested all the way, though, to learn the process and be involved, because we do want that involvement.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If no one else has any other questions about this item, we will go to the next information item, which is student policy revisions. Dr. Gilbert.
Mr. President, members of the board, our attorneys have reviewed the student suspension policy and have recommended a minor wording change in policies JKD, student suspension, and JKE, expulsion of students. To bring consistency to the working of the two policies, it is recommended to change school days to business days. And then finally, Chandler Unified School District is recommending a minor change to policy JJIE, which is drug use in school activities, which is our random drug testing policy. As it is not the district's practice to test for alcohol, it is recommended to remove alcohol testing from the policy. These changes are presented as information, and approval will be requested at the June 28th, 2023 regular board meeting.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about this policy? All right, it's riveting reading if you have time. Our next item is another one for Dr. Marshall, health policy revisions.
Mr. President, members of the board, Chandler School District recommends updating policy JHD for exclusions and exemptions from school attendance regulation JHD-R and adding exhibits JHD-EA, JHD-EB, JHD-EC, and JHD-ED to avoid the potential that a HIPAA violation may occur and to ensure that the regulation and exhibits follow state statute ARS 15-346. The exhibits now indicate that the disclosure to a parent or guardian is permitted disclosure under HIPAA because it is being requested by a protected party. Parents and staff have prescriptive processes to ensure all parties have clarity when considering a student eligible as a student with a chronic illness, which prevents them from attending school on a regular basis. Procedures were updated to reflect changes to the process at the site level, certification of chronic illness by a medical provider, parents' agreement, and the homework plan. Exhibit JHD-E is being removed. These changes are presented as information and approval for policy JHD for exclusions and exemptions from school attendance that will be requested at the June 28th, 2023 board meeting. Regulations and exhibits do not require board approval.
All right, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions about this item? Yes, sir.
Actually, I did, because this is actually a real case. And it's just a clarification. We have a lot of kids that have parents that are separated and there's joint custody. Okay. And, you know, one parent believes the kid should be in school, the other parent, not so much. Okay. And then the kid starts failing and is subject to chronic absences. How do we take care of that? Because I want the kid in school. And I would probably prefer the parent that wants the kid in school as well. How do you address that?
Well, one of the things that this revision is going to allow us to do is we have a more robust follow-through and parent agreement and participation. So if we've got the two parents that aren't agreeing, typically we will always ask those parents for who has the final say on educational decision-making. But this involves also our district nurses and our school nurses that are involved in working with the student's physician. So the chronic illness isn't it's definitely much more robust to where what is interfering with the student's ability to attend. And a chronic illness can't be, for instance, if they have asthma, that's one thing, but the asthma has to be so significant that they require multiple hospitalizations and things of that nature to where they are going to be not exempt, but they won't get the attendance letters. And we know that they will most likely then in our processes and our new procedures, we would then look to possibly have a 504 eligibility meeting to determine what kind of accommodations that they would require to get them in school. As far as the parents disagreeing on what's a chronic illness and what is not, it's not up to the parents to determine what is chronic. It's going to be up to the medical healthcare provider to determine if it's a chronic illness. And then it would go through our district nurses to have a discussion with that healthcare provider. That's why this policy provides the release of information with parent permission to discuss the chronic illness with the medical provider, so that way the medical provider understands that the student is absent for this specific illness that they may be, whether it be, for instance, we have multiple kids that are undergoing leukemia treatment. They've got mitochondrial disease to which they can't be in school, or they miss a lot of school for treatments and infusions, those kinds of things. But the chronic illness has to be significant illness and not a disagreement between parents saying Johnny's got a headache versus Johnny doesn't have a headache, send him to school. What is it that's happening with that student, and do they have some sort of a migraine or a chronic illness that has to do with their pain? And we would get that information from a medical provider, not necessarily just the parent.
Okay, because some of the times these things hinge on custody agreements.
Correct.
Okay, from family court.
Correct.
Okay. And I think what you're telling me is that a third-party medical provider can kind of intervene here a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to understand.
Yes, so that way we don't have the he said, she said between the two parents. Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. If there's any more questions on that one, we'll go to the next one, which is also Dr. Marshall's about foster care policy.
Oh, yes, Mr. President, governing board members, ASBA is recommending revisions to policy JFA BDA, admission of students in foster care, and regulation JFA BDA-R to include definitions and best interest determination for children in custody of DCS. This policy and regulation are being updated to conform with Senate Bill 1205, which is going to yet to be put into law until 90 days after seeing Denny. The educating students in the foster care system is in collaboration between schools, child welfare agencies, and the Arizona Department of Ed. Mandated collaboration includes assigning a district point of contact for children in foster care and notifying ADE of the district's point of contact assignee. Definitions of children in foster care, school of origin, and best interest determination were amended or added to reflect the U.S. Department of Education's non-regulatory guidance regarding students in foster care. These changes are presented as information. Policy JFA BDA will be presented for approval at the June 28th, 2023 regular board meeting. Regulations do not require board approval.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions about the foster care policy from anybody?
Yeah, who typically is the point of contact, or do we have somebody identified?
Yes, Val Jerry in our federal program. She is our Families in Transition advocate. Val Jerry is our advocate. Yes, our point of contact, yes.
All right, if there's no other questions about the foster care item, our last information item, that honor goes to Ms. Berry.
All right. Mr. President, members of the board, there's a food and nutrition vehicles purchase update for you, and Airmark has actually asked us to put this on as an information item as our attorneys work through it just on their behalf. They want it to go through. We already have secured all the procurement sides of it, but it's ultimately to serve both Airmark and our need, and this was actually for their need. But this is just to update on the vehicle purchase for the catering transit van and the delivery box truck that are temperature controlled for daily operations. As you know, we weren't able to secure one of those here in Arizona with any of our providers. Finally, Airmark found one across the country, was able to secure it for us. And so we utilized their contract underneath the contract that we've approved through you as the governing board. And one thing, originally they quoted us the actual cost of the catering transit delivery delivery truck, but they didn't have the chassis cost on there, which is almost the same amount as the truck, which is pretty crazy. So the total cost is $169,188. So just wanted to update that, to go over it, since there is a difference, and that's a significant difference. We just wanted to make sure that we had some information and presented it here to the governing board.
Okay, thank you. Do we run into any trouble if they're buying something on our behalf?
That's why they want to make sure that we know about it. That's what, just have the updates. It's really to protect them. So they just want to make sure they're not buying it and then we back out in a sense, so.
Okay.
Lynn, I'm just surprised that we're able to delegate our authority to ARM.
We were, but they want this. This is their attorney who wanted this information item because we do not need it actually as an information item. But their attorney
Again, you're
wanted it.
delegating our authority.
We are in a sense.
I've never known that to be allowed.
Well, we have an earmark contract that allows us to spend X amount underneath that earmark contract. It allows them to purchase furniture and equipment underneath that contract if needed, if we cannot secure it. Usually we purchase the items because we, it's, you know, here local in Arizona, or there's vendors that we're working with specifically, but if we can't find something, we can utilize their purchasing power. And actually, they're a $19 billion company. Sometimes they have better authority. As you know, they purchase the food, and then we get reimbursed on a per meal price. So there are things they purchase underneath that contract. This is just one of the other items. But they just want to make sure they're securing it for themselves.
Yeah, I'm not clear.
Great
Who's actually
transparency.
buying the truck, Airmark or us?
Airmark is purchasing the truck, and then we are paying them for the truck. So it'll go to them, it'll be titled by them, and then the title will come over to us. So they'll, in a sense, once they get paid, that title will come over to us once we pay for it.
All right. Any other questions on that?
And they're not making money off of any of that. That's just ultimately they're purchasing
They're just
on our
passing it
behalf.
through?
Yes.
All right. That brings us to a board agenda roadmap. Our next meeting is June 28th. It looks like we have an exec session for our student appeal. And then we have effective resource management, 2023, 2024 budget. So Lana's going to go over that for us. I think we also have an item that Kurt's been asking to get on there. We'll get that for him finally as an information item, probably before it's got to be voted on the next meeting after that. Now it brings us around to board member current events. Mr. Roars, do you have anything new?
Yeah, I did my first graduation at Castile High School. And I can tell you it's probably the funnest event you get to do as a school board member. I did see a former staff employee, Frank Fletcher. And just to back this up for a second, there is a tradition at Castile High School that the parents can step up to the stage and present the diploma to their child, where I step back and let them do with it. And huh?
Staff member, yeah.
Oh, staff member parents, okay. Well, Frank, being a former staff member, I think they let him get away with it. But it was nice to see him, first of all, but he was very, very proud to present his diploma to his granddaughter, and it was just a fun thing to watch. With that, the other thing that I was really impressed by is that the students, I almost call them kids, but they're actually young men and women. That's one thing you realize when they're walking up to you. These are not children anymore. They're young men and women. But the ones that are listed in the military wear a stole with the branch of the service that they enlist in. So, you know, I was able to congratulate 2 Marines and 2 Navy enlistees, and that is, you know, I was very, very proud of those kids. But all in all, it was just a wonderful evening, and want to do more of those. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Patty, do you have anything new?
We blinked and it's June. So as we had a community member comment, we're still keeping busy. We have summer school. My household is actually enrolled in COA. It's a wonderful experience and you get credits out of the way, FYI. But I do want to take a moment to recognize that this month we celebrate Pride in honor of Stonewall. To our CUSD LGBTQ plus students, educators, and staff, happy Pride Month. I see you and I stand with you in celebration and in pursuit of safe and inclusive schools for our entire community. Thank you to our local student advocates for all you do, including gifting us pins in the community and stickers, wearing that with pride. We also have Juneteenth around the corner. That's this coming Monday, June 19th. And with that, in Chandler, we have a weekend full of festive activities. So I'd like to put a community invitation out. The Juneteenth Scholarship Pageant, sponsored by our Chandler Self-Help Foundation, is this Friday, June 16th at 7 p.m., and that will be held at the Chandler Center for the Arts. You can purchase your ticket on Eventbrite for $15. It's a lot of fun. I was able to attend last year, and you see some talent. Then on Saturday, June 17th, we have Culture in the Park. It's our third year, I believe, from 7 to 9:30. That's here downtown at Dr. A.J. Park. And I'm happy to share that we'll have free performances, including an American Idol contestant, if people watch, Isaac Brown, and Vaughn Willis and Year Candy, who I promise will get you moving if you attend. So maybe we'll see some of you out there.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Boston, do you have anything new for us?
Not new, but I did attend the Semicolon Society, which was with mental health, and it was a very, very nice event. They try and get people during the summer to connect them with resources. The entire community was invited, and they had an absolute wonderful turnout. I will also say that I agree with Mr. Roars on graduation is one of the best times in the school district, I think, for board members, because it does, you hand out a lot of diplomas. You see kids that are just so excited to be graduating. Every single one of them, their eyes light up when they receive that diploma, and it's a very rewarding situation. I will say that we also had a former board member, Annette Oxier, at Chandler High, and she was giving out diplomas to her grandchildren. So it was a fun time, and it's really, you really realize that these young adults are heading off to really, for college, careers, enlistment, and entrepreneurship, and it's a wonderful thing to see. So.
All right, thank you. Joel, do you have anything new for us this time? Okay, I do not have any long, lengthy things. I just need to remind all the board members that I need to get signatures on some paperwork from everybody, so please don't leave yet. With that brings us to the conclusion. Thank you for coming, everybody. I see some new faces. Welcome. Good night.